I've been dating death, my worst lover and soon to be my last, but he's also been my greatest teacher, for he's opened my eyes to how I want to live. And boy, I like to live. I am Miss Seize the Day, carpe diem to the core. I even have it tattooed on my bum. I have a formidable life force. I'm a risk taker and an adrenaline junkie. I bungee jumped for my 20th, I skydived on my 30th, I trapezed for my 40th, and I polar plunged on my 50th. This is me in my early 30s, living my best life, studying to be a detective and a police negotiator. I was going to be a top cop and a mother. And then cancer came. Stage 4 ovarian with secondary bowel. My first surgeon took one look, stitched me back up and said, "Go make peace with God." Pathology results showed that I actually had a rare cancer called pseudomyxoma peritonei. It likes to produce a mucin, a jelly-like substance, in the abdomen. It coats and suffocates organs, particularly the bowel and the liver, causing them to fail. My only hope was a radical peritonectomy, the mother of all surgeries performed by a handful of skilled surgeons. It took the surgical team 18 hours to meticulously burn, scrape, and cut that cancer from my body. Heated chemotherapy was poured into my open cavity to penetrate any cells that had escaped the scalpel. In ICU, I endured EPIC, post-operative intraperitoneal chemotherapy. And EPIC it was. Each day for 5 days, a litre of chemo was pumped into my belly, while I was rotated like a Woolies roast chicken, chest strains piercing my flesh. The chemo left in overnight and drained the next day to allow the painful process to start all over again. I lost multiple organs, my spleen, my gallbladder, my appendix, my omentum, an ovary, and part of my large bowel. I was a shell of my former self, both physically and mentally. Now, I don't advocate cancer as a weight loss strategy, but this is me 18 kilos lighter. 3 months later, and I was back at work. I pushed hard to finish my detectives course. I dove back into my routine, striving ahead. I thought I was a cop. I thought I was invincible and able to defy death. But death wasn't finished yet. 1 year after my peritonectomy, on a mild July morning, he came again swiftly and without warning, taking my father with him. Just 5 weeks after his official diagnosis from pancreatic cancer. The pace of decline so quick it was hard to catch breath. Before he died, my father asked for a commitment from me to marry a boy named Matt. It took me several months, but one morning while lying in bed, I said to Matt, "I don't want to die a spinster." What a way to sweet talk a man into marrying you. Now, Matt thought I would die and he'd be the hero husband, and I'm still defrauding him 15 years later, but that's a whole other story. We decided to try IVF to create a family of our own. But while testing to see if an egg could pass through my fallopian tube, we discovered that the cancer was back. I endured a second peritonectomy on Matt's 35th birthday. The cancer was cleaned up, along with my surviving ovary and any chance of motherhood. I felt like a failure. This wasn't the story I'd written for myself. Death lurked in my shadows and visited my dreams. Like a hungry dementor, he kissed my lips, draining happiness from my life, my lungs, until all was frozen. I could see no horizon, no tomorrow, no light. A friend called telling me about her plans to visit Sweden 3 years ahead. I couldn't even plan my next meal. Ultimately, it took a car crash to break me free. A family driving home from their Christmas holidays collided with an oil tanker and their car caught on fire. I played the accident over and over in my head while I watched TV footage of their lives being extinguished. 1 minute you're driving along, thinking about your plans, and then suddenly you're on the wrong side of the road and you crash. Life can and does change in an instant. You think you're healthy, and then you're told you only have months to live. In that moment, I knew that I had been fearing the end and forgetting to live. I still had air in my lungs and life in my bones, and good or bad, I knew I had to get on with life. And so I did, for 2 years, until death came again, this time for my mother. From pancreatic cancer, yes, the same as my father. My sister and I watched as she took her last breath. It was hard to witness, even harder to digest. And the world got a little darker that night. But life goes on, even when you don't. Days came and went, unconscious of how they were spent. And in time, I forgot about death. I got caught up in life, seeking promotion, striving ahead. The longer cancer stayed away, the bolder I became, until death struck again. In 2018, while I was relieving as an inspector, I suffered a bowel obstruction. With the help of a nasogastro tube, it cleared over the weekend, and I was back at work on the Monday. But 2 days later, my surgeon called to tell me that the cancer was back, pressing on my bowel. I had to make a decision: go under the knife or give in. Peritonectomy number 3 it was. When I woke from the surgery, I vowed that I wasn't going to take life for granted, that I was going to go and find my fun and fulfill my bucket list to see Norway and the Arctic Circle. I celebrated my 50th watching the emerald swirls of the aurora dance across the sky. And for a little while there, I thought I was winning with peritonectomy number 3. But death wanted more. When I got back from Norway, the government had sent me a bowel screen test. I ignored it, as you do for several months, until my conscience got the better of me. It detected blood in my stool, and a colonoscopy later, I found out that the cancer was back, this time pressing both on my bladder and bowel. I underwent my 4th peritonectomy in March this year. I scored a colostomy, and I'm potentially heading towards a bladder bag if the chemo I'm on doesn't halt progression. Conversations are no longer about survival, but how long I'll survive. Death is back to remind me, I'm not invincible. I can't outrun him. He will find me. Do not fear him, for he'll steal your power and your days. But mostly, do not ignore him, blindly believing that tomorrow will come. Now, I just want to ask some questions. Raise your hands if you've thought about your own death. And keep your hands raised if you've planned your funeral. Yeah, it's interesting to see some hands go down. According to journalist Ray Martin in his television series The Last Goodbye, only 1 in 5 people have talked to their family about how they want to go. We don't know when we're going to go or where we end up, and that's scary. So we disconnect from death. We push it away and forget. But the promise of death continuously reminds me how I want to live. I'm not sleepwalking, wondering when that moment may be. I get to the end of each day and I recognise that's one less breath. We all have a unique number of finite breaths, but at the end of the day, we've all got one less. So I want you all to take a deep breath with me now and let it go. That's one less. Now, how do you want to spend the rest? What I've learned is that I have agency, skin in the game. Life can punch me in the face, but I can choose how I respond. I work on my fears. I don't poison my present, predicting a future, worrying about how things may play out. I have a roadmap, but that's not necessarily the journey I get to take. My dear friend Wildy supported me through my first 2 surgeries. She died at age 40 of aggressive ovarian cancer. 11 years on, and I'm still here. No one would have expected that. I choose how I spend my time, for time is precious. And I continue to suck the marrow out of life, for this is my North Star, my guiding light. Now, how do you keep death in your vision? Not fear or forget him. Be disturbed by life events or absorbed in routine while time ticks away. I rely on a constellation of stars, mental strategies and practices that light my way. In fact, during one of my darkest days in hospital, I was inspired to collate 100 of my favourite. I want to share just 3 of them with you today that I use daily to remind me how I want to live. My number 1 star, I practice acceptance. Now, acceptance doesn't mean you're immune to what's happening. It sucks having cancer. I hate that it's stolen my fertility. There's not a day where that grief, that well of sadness will dry up and cease. I'm not a mother. I'll never be a grandmother. But I choose to accept, not resist what is. And this frees up my time and my energy. So what does acceptance look like in practice? For me, it's about letting go of thoughts of guilt and unfairness. I don't ask why me. Why not me? If I like what's happening, I enjoy and celebrate it. And if I'm hurting, I look to see what I can learn or change about the situation. Acceptance is about letting reality in so that choices can begin. I may not be a mother, but I am a proud auntie, a godmother, and mummy to one very spoilt fur baby. And this takes me to my 2nd star, letting go. Author and motivational speaker Michael Singer reminds us that we're on a planet spinning in outer space, and therefore worrying about the minutiae of your day, such as the blemish on your face, the scratch on your car, the fact that you farted in public, which I do quite often these days thanks to my stoma, is inconsequential. Michael Singer reminds us to relax and release and let go of resistance wherever possible. That rain that's raining on your parade, can you let it wash over you as it washes you away? When I'm getting caught up in life and stealing my time and energy, I often ask myself, really, is that what I'm focusing on? I step back and I look at the macro instead of the micro. I remind myself, heck, I'm a little ant running around a rock in the Milky Way of life. And finally, my 3rd star, find your tribe. I found my tribe, people who love and support me and raise me up, and I cherish them. I have a meticulous surgeon, a caring and diligent GP, and I get my energies balanced each season by a spiritual healer. I go full spectrum. I have an awesome husband, a loving and loyal sister, and I'm surrounded by family, friends, and colleagues. I know at the end of the game, my heart will call time. and all that will survive of me is love, in hearts, in memories, and in minds. So I ask you, why wait till death comes knocking or takes you without warning? What choices can you make each day to remind you that's one less breath? And what actions can you take to live quality days while there's still air in your lungs and life in your bones? I won't be dying wounded, wondering why me, reminiscing how I could have, should have, would have. No, I'll be surrounded by love, living life to the last breath, trading and leaving precious memories. I truly believe that we're all connected, that every atom of oxygen in our lungs, of carbon in our muscles, of calcium in our bones, of iron in our blood was forged inside a star before Earth was born. I will die and return as stardust. And when I die, I want to be bathed in Chanel perfume and light up the sky like a firecracker. And in the face of death, I shall continue to suck the marrow from life.
Inspector Liz Little, you've made me ugly cry. You witnessed the response from the audience, and before we move on, I have Liz's permission to share a story with you about the first time Liz and I met. Because today is the first time I've heard Liz speak and share her story. Inspector Liz, will you join me on the stage? Canberra, we're about together to do a TED first. Because when I first met Liz at the sponsor event, I introduced myself and said, "Hi, I'm Wayne. I'm the delightfully average MC. I spoke on the TEDx Circle 7 years ago, but I still, every time I go on there, I want a nervous wee." And Liz, Inspector Liz, without missing a beat, said back to me, "Well, it could bloody well happen for me, Wayne. I've got half a bladder." Liz, I want to share with you that it was a privilege to witness your talk today. It was a privilege to share space with you and for you to share so openly with us. And it's with that kindness that together we're going to do a TED first. And we, Liz and I, Inspector Liz and I, are going to metaphorically nervous wee on the TEDx red circle, bathed in Chanel.